Welcome to Leading Through Change, the podcast for purpose-driven leaders who know there's a better way to navigate crisis, complexity, change, and uncertainty. I'm your host, Melissa Agnes, founder of Crisis Ready Institute, creator of the Crisis Ready certification, and passionate believer that the way that we've been taught to lead no longer serves us. In fact, it often creates more harm, more disconnection, and more fear, and it's time to change that. If you're feeling called to lead differently, not from control, but from connection, not through reaction, but through aligned action, then you are in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. All right, so this week's episode is how coherence turns chaos into clarity. Last week, in our last episode, we spoke about survival mode. We spoke about fear, where it comes from, and how any state of fear-based, like low-frequency emotional states put the human body into survival mode. And we looked at how we can't be in both survival mode and creation mode at the same time because our body physiologically can't do both, because in survival mode, our prefrontal cortex shuts down, which removes our access to clarity, to vision, to innovation, to possibility leadership. And when we're in creation mode, now our prefrontal cortex is engaged, which grants us access to all of those things. So that is where the place from which we want to lead. So when we talked about that last week, we also talked a little bit about coherence. And at the end of the call, I received a question that I get asked very frequently. It's a brilliant question. And so that's where I thought that would be the really great next step for this journey of this podcast and setting the real foundations of everything that I want you guys to know, so that moving forward, we're just all talking about the same thing. We're coming from the same place. And the question that I received was, can heart-brain coherence really be felt even through a screen? So in this world that we live in today, where everything is hybrid, both in person and through a screen, can coherence, I think the question was really two-part, can it truly be felt? Is it really a thing? And what happens when we have to lead through chaos, we have to lead through change, we have to lead through crisis, and we're not physically in the same space as those we are leading? Does resonance, does coherence work in the same way? So that's what we're going to dive into today. Today's going to get a little bit sciencey, but not too sciencey because I am not a scientist. So everything that I share with you will be in my kind of layman explanation, but I want to bring you the science because I want you to truly, everything about this episode or everything about this podcast is we're going to do a system or like a sequence where every week we're going to learn about something from a cognitive standpoint. So it's going to resonate with our brains. We're going to be able to go, that makes sense. I get that. I understand how that's going to help me strengthen my skill as a leader who needs to or wants to lead through change. And then, if you guys were with me last week, you also experience the somatic exercise. So it's not enough for us to understand something from a cognitive level. We have to go deeper. Our body holds so much power, so much wisdom, so much potency, and so much of the realness of our being is held in our body, not just in our brains. And so a big part of the experience of this live podcast, as well as the recorded podcast, is to then take what we learn from every episode and to feel it somatically in our nervous systems. So you begin every week, one, from a grounded place, and two, to actually begin embodying whatever it is that we talked about in the episode. And we experienced that last week. And so this week we're going to talk about coherence. So I'm going to bring you a little bit of the science. I'm going to bring you the facts, the logic, so that you can go, okay, this makes perfect sense. And then you're going to feel it. You're going to experience it for yourself. So get ready for this next 50-ish minutes. I'm super psyched to be here. Okay, there's this quote that I've been hearing in my circles more and more, which makes sense coming from the different circles that I'm a part of. But the quote is, and I don't know who to attribute it to, so if you do know who to attribute this to, please put it in the chat and I will attribute it. The quote is, the most powerful person in the room is the calmest person in the room. And when we're talking about leading through change, when we're talking about leading through chaos or crisis, when we're talking about leading people whose nervous systems are dysregulated because, as we learned last week, change creates resistance out of fear, which means lower frequency vibrational state, dysregulated nervous system, the person is in or the people are in survival mode. So when we're leading people from that place, it's really, really hard to connect with them, to resonate with them, because emotion clouds judgment, right? So those very intense, lower frequency emotions. And when I talk about lower frequency emotions, most people use the words negative emotions. I don't believe that emotions are actually negative. Emotions are neutral. Emotions are energy in motion. That's it. So lower frequency emotions are fear-based emotions. Higher frequency emotions are love-based emotions. We'll talk about all of that in a different episode, but just to kind of give you a little sense of where I'm coming from. So when we talk about when we're leading people through resistance, through change, the calmest person in the room is the most powerful person in the room. I want to first define what it means, what we mean here by calmest. So when I think about being in a state of fear or being in a room filled with people who are in a state of fear or resistance because of change, I feel into the calmest person, and the words that come to mind are grounded, connected, resonant, and safe, right? Which is why they're the most powerful. And if you notice, each of these words are felt senses, right? We feel when we are grounded, and we feel when somebody else is deeply grounded. That's a felt sense. We can feel that. We also feel when we're connected to ourselves, in which case we need to be in order to be grounded, connected to source or to God or to higher power, connected to others. All of this is something that we feel oftentimes in ways that we can't even put words to. We also feel when we're resonant. When something is resonant, when it's resonating with us, oftentimes, sometimes it can be on a cognitive level, but oftentimes it's something we feel. And then when we feel safe, right, that's more than just cognitive, that's a felt sense. And so when we think about the calmest person in the room is the most powerful person in the room, and we look at what calm means in the context of change management or crisis management, we're talking about felt senses. And this is precisely what coherence is. So what is coherence? Okay. Coherence, put very simply, is when your heart, your mind, your emotions, and your nervous system are all working in sync with one another. They are working harmoniously together. So your emotions are balanced. You're in a raised vibrational emotion, so closer to love. Your heart rhythms are balanced, and everything in your body just creates this smooth, energetic flow, allowing you to feel calm, have more clarity, so feel focused, and more resilient. This goes back to what we talked about last week. So this is putting what we talked about last week into another level of layer. So it's like, so when you're in coherence, it's like everything is aligned within you, helping you respond more effectively to a situation and make clearer decisions. Because when you're in coherence, you're not in survival. Because when you're in coherence, everything is aligned within your system, including your nervous system, which means that you're regulated, and you're only in survival mode when you're in stress or in fear, which means that your nervous system is dysregulated. So when you're in heart-brain coherence, it also means that your emotional state is very positive, or we're going to say high vibrational, which again, we're going to go deeper into another episode. We're not going to go into that today. But what I want you to take away today is that the higher your vibrational emotional state, the more rhythmic your heart rhythms, which in turn then helps your brain to function more clearly. So that's the heart-brain piece of it, right? Your emotional state and your nervous system and your thoughts, all of those are interconnected, are regulated. Your heart is beating in a very rhythmic, regulated way, which is fueling your brain. allowing more clarity on the cognitive level. So that's heart-brain connection, that's heart-brain coherence. Last week, we talked about this in a different way. And last week, without even saying it, when we did the experiential part of this, you experienced at least a little bit of what it felt like to be in coherence when we went into the body, when we went into survival and into creation and out of survival, out of fear. So essentially, why this is important, why coherence is one of the most potent, powerful skills that leaders haven't been taught, that none of us have been taught as a leadership skill, especially for navigating, leading through change, through crisis, through chaos, through controversy, through high stakes emotion. There's two reasons. The first is when you are in coherence, you are regulated, right? So you are calmer, you are centered, you are grounded, which means you are potent and powerful. It also, again, we'll talk about this more in a different episode, but it grants you access to possibility leadership from a quantum physics standpoint. So you can create now the change that you actually want to lead people through. You can begin to create it more easily when you are in coherence. So being in coherence enables you to create the change you want to lead and to lead through it effectively with more resonance. So from a leadership standpoint, being in coherence is extremely powerful, extremely powerful. It's the place from which we always want to be creating from, especially when the stakes are high, especially when everybody else's nervous systems are dysregulated and they're in states of fear. And that brings me to the second piece, or the second thing that being in coherence grants you from a leadership standpoint, is it grants you the ability to lead true transformational resonance. Lead with true transformational resonance. And this piece is what we're going to talk about today. How that happens, why that happens, etc., so that you, at the end of today, at the top of this hour, are able to begin to actually practice this in your daily life, at home, at work, etc. So we know that change, crisis, chaos creates fear, which creates resistance. Emotion clouds judgment. We can't beat emotion with logic. It's one of the crisis ready rules. So we can't just speak emotion, or we can't just speak logically to the people that we are trying to lead through the change. We can't do that because it's not going to resonate the way that we need it to resonate. When we are in coherence, we are now resonating on a deeper level that goes actually more deeply than the emotions that are clouding the judgment. So from a leadership standpoint, being in coherence becomes a super skill to help you resonate through the emotions, through the resistance, which is very, very real and very potent, of others who are in a lower frequency vibrational emotional state, so fear-based emotion, fear, grief, etc., and lead them through change to truly resonate. And I want to look, this is where we're going to get a little bit sciencey, because I want you to know how real this is. All of this is measured with science. So the reason that we're able to resonate in this way with others through heart-brain coherence is through a thing called biological synchrony. Human bodies naturally sync up with those around them through a process known as physiological entrainment. This phenomenon occurs when one person's physiological state influences and aligns another's. So oftentimes we talk about this in things like subtle body cues, right? Body language, tone of voice. We talk about physiological entrainment or biological synchrony through the verbal words and the physicalness of our communication, our body language, our tone of voice, the words that we use, etc. But the biggest piece to this equation that's often left out is the heart's electromagnetic field. So this, for example, means that if there's a room And this room is filled with people, and these people are in panic or they're in fear. And there is a leader who is in coherence, who is grounded, who is calm, who is centered, whose heart rhythms match their emotional state, and right, they're in heart-brain coherence. They walk into the room. Science proves that right away, everybody else who's dysregulated, who's in those lower frequency emotional states, instantly become a little bit more regulated. Their nervous system becomes a little bit more regulated because of the impact of that one leader who was in coherence who walked in. When you're leading through change, tell me how potent, how powerful, how incredibly useful that would be for you as a leader who's leading through change as a skill that you don't just know how to use cognitively, but that you can embody. I want to share that. So I said that all of this is measurable, right? This isn't woo-woo. This is true science. This is the way that we are created. So the heart creates an electromagnetic field that is scientifically measured through heart rate variability monitors, HRV monitors. So we measure this through those types of monitors. And the heart generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body, extending several feet beyond the body, which is why other people feel it. So this field is powerful enough to carry emotion and energetic information. From a quantum physics standpoint, we are all created from subatomic particles, which are both wave and particle, right? We are both physical matter and energy, wave, at the same time. We have a physical body, we have an energetic body. Again, scientifically backed. So what we're talking about here is frequency, energy, which is all around us all the time. It's what we come from, it's what we're made of, is information and intelligence. And the heart's electromagnetic field is a carrier and a receiver of that information and that intelligence. That's why sometimes when you walk into a room and there's a whole bunch of people, let's just say it's a party, and the music's going and everything about the room goes, this should be a fun room, but you walk in and you're like, whoa, what's this vibe? What just happened here? That is not your brain cognitively realizing that something just happened moments before you got walked in because you weren't present to it. That is the electromagnetic field of your heart intaking the energy, intaking the information that is in the room and feeding it through the vagus nerve to your brain for your brain to then process. This is heart-brain coherence. And the more that we access this skill that we all by birthright have, the more potent, the more powerful we become as leaders, especially when we are leading through change. So when a person achieves heart-brain coherence, so a state of smooth, ordered heart rhythms attached to high vibrational thoughts and emotions, which we'll talk about, they trigger their parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes relaxation and resilience, which is what we talked about, right? This state amplifies the heart's electromagnetic field. So the more we're in coherence, the more the heart's electromagnetic field becomes potent. And then that field positively influences those around you, creating a calming and connected effect in others. And one of the things that we know is that we as human beings are wired for connection. We'll do another episode on that. But we're wired for connection. And our bodies, when we are dysregulated, when our nervous system is dysregulated, our nervous system is designed to constantly be seeking regulation. This is why, for example, when we're cold, we start to shiver, right? Our body temperature lowers to a point that might be a little bit dangerous. We start to shiver. This is our nervous system going, oh, we're cold. Let's create energy. Let's shiver to up our body temperature so that we're more regulated. So our nervous system, that's just a small example. Our nervous system is designed to constantly be seeking regulation. And so when somebody is in a dysregulated state, when somebody is feeling panic or overwhelm, fear, resistance, worry, concern, etc., right? So the feelings that we feel when we're going through change, if you, as the leader, have mastered the skill of coherence, your presence alone will help their nervous system begin to regulate, which means what? And it'll help their system begin to regulate because you're in coherence, which means your heart's electromagnetic field is very potent and very powerful. So it therefore impacts their regulated nerve or their dysregulated nervous system. And because their system is designed to seek regulation, it feels your calm, your centeredness, your groundedness, your coherence, and it naturally is designed to lean in and go, oh, I want to feel this. I feel safe in this. This is so potent and so powerful that it's starting to have an effect on their system to help them regulate. Again, all scientifically proven. So, what does this do? You, in this state, when you're in coherence, right? We talked about what it does for you a little bit, what it does for others. It starts to regulate their system, their nervous system, which what? It helps them come out of survival and into coherence. It helps them to gain more clarity, more calm, to access deeper understandings. We know, one of the Christ Ready rules, we can't beat emotion with logic. I already said it. Because emotion clouds judgment. So how many times do we see leaders stand up in times of moments of crisis or change where other people are in states of fear, resistance, etc., and they just try to lead from the cognitive standpoint. They just try to spew out logic, but emotion clouds judgment. So that's not going to resonate. It's why it doesn't work. Our society, this is a big piece of like when I opened up and I said that it's time to lead differently. Our society has put major value on the cognitive brain, on intelligence, which is great. However, it's not great when we leave out the wisdom and the intelligence and the potency of our body as well. So if we want to lead through change and people are in states of fear, and we know we can't just speak to them logically, and it's really hard to get through their emotions are clouding their judgment, and we have access to this really powerful skill that if we can get ourselves into coherence right away, before we even open our mouths, just by being in sheer presence with others, they can begin to feel calmer and safer and more trusting of us. That is a very, very, very potent, powerful skill to master for crisis communication, for crisis management, for change management, for anything that involves leading through change. So heart-brain coherence is backed both by science and is energetically felt because we are more energy than we are matter. So kind of just like bringing this together, the value and the importance, this signals to other people's systems that they are safe. In a dysregulated nervous system that's seeking safety and seeking regulation, all of a sudden you walk in and you feel safe, they're going to lean in, which means it signals to their nervous system that you are trustworthy, which gives you the opportunity to truly resonate with them and lead them through the change, through the crisis. So a couple facts around the heart's electromagnetic field from a science standpoint. The heart, and like why it's more potent than the brain just using logic itself. So the heart generates an electric field that is 60 times stronger than that of the brain. 60 times more resonance and potency than that of just logic alone. It also generates a magnetic field that is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. And the heart's electromagnetic field is energy and is the largest and most powerful field generated by the body. As I mentioned, this field, this energy, is directly influenced by our emotional state. So the higher our vibrational state, the higher we get, so by higher vibrational emotions, I'm talking joy, I'm talking gratitude, I'm talking love, excitement, all those things that just make you feel so good when you feel them. Those are higher vibrational emotions. The higher we get into those emotions, the more we feel excited, the more we feel gratitude, the more we feel love, the more coherent our body becomes, the more coherent our heart rhythms are, and the more we're incoherent, so the more potent our heart's electromagnetic field. Somebody's asking, what is the scientific origin of this, please? The Heart Math Institute. Go Google Heart Math Institute. I'll put it in the show notes. They are the ones who, Dr. Joe Dispenza is another one who teaches this stuff. But Heart Math Institute has been around for almost 4 decades now, and their whole mission is to prove all of this stuff, and they do a phenomenal job. They even sell technology, which I don't sell this, so this isn't an ad, that measures in real time your heart-brain coherence. So it's super cool. I can talk about that later if you guys are interested. When we talked last week about getting out of survival and into creation, I said that we have to get out of the brain and into the body because fear only lives in the brain. When we get into the body and we start getting into coherence, we are elevating our frequency because we're tapping into those higher frequency emotions. And this energy doesn't just stay within us, it extends outwardly, influencing those around us. The calmest person in the room, the most regulated person in the room, is the most powerful when we're talking about leading through change because they feel safe, they feel grounded, they feel trustworthy. So ultimately, the heart's ability to influence others is both physiological and energetic, which makes sense because we're both. So by maintaining heart-brain coherence, you support your own well-being, right? You regulate your own nervous system, you decrease your stress levels. It creates physiological and energetic safety in this space, even virtually, which I'll touch on in a second. It builds trust faster, even when met with resistance, because you feel safe. It supports intuitive decision-making under pressure, which is invaluable. It shifts the group dynamic, so people entrain to your coherence. The most powerful person in the room is the one in coherence because our body is seeking regulation. So if I walk in the room and I'm in coherence and somebody else walks in the room and they're frantic, other people's systems who are also in the room are not going to be attracted to this energetic state. They're going to be attracted to mine because I feel safe. And our nervous system is always seeking safety and regulation. And it allows yourself to stay connected without being consumed. And in this context, I'm talking about consumed by the energies at play, right? Like when you're leading through change, there's so much resistance, there's so much fear, there's so much chaos, and that is all energy. And that can be very impactful, right? It can be very overwhelming to our nervous system, but the more you're in coherence, the more you're shielded from all of that. And the more you influence all of that to become less chaotic. So then this leads me to the question that I started with that was asked to me last week, which is, does coherence even work through a screen? In this hybrid world, the answer is absolutely. Why? Because energy doesn't have boundaries the way that particles do. It's not the same thing. Your coherence is felt through the nervous system, and your nervous system speaks louder than your voice ever could. We are more energy than we are matter, than we are particle, and our energy is the most potent aspect of our leadership, of our communication, of our beingness. And so I'll give you an example that I use regularly. So I'm a keynote speaker. I've been a keynote speaker for like 15 years. And I get on stages around the world and I have to talk about crisis communication and leading through change in ways that most people don't, if you haven't noticed. And that is something new. What did we learn last week? The ego doesn't like new because it feels unsafe and it can't discern between what is actually dangerous and what is simply uncomfortable because it is new. And I get on stage and I talk about crisis communication and crisis leadership and change management in ways that people aren't used to. And so that is new. And that creates, in my experience, a lot of resistance sometimes in the people that I am trying to resonate with. And yet my message is so, so, so important and so powerful in such a positive way. And I know that I can have all the words, the most beautiful, like laid out, manicured words. And I do, right? My presentations are spot on. I've rehearsed. I know exactly what I'm saying. I know exactly my time frame for everything. I know how to say it, etc. I also know that if I am not grounded in the truth of what I'm talking about and my deeper knowings of what I'm talking about and how much I know them to be true, if I'm not grounded in that and in coherence, it doesn't really matter how I say what I say, because I'm going to receive, and I've experienced this, more resistance than resonance. When I get on stage and my energy is clean and I am grounded, I am connected to my message, I am connected to my truths, and I know that I'm in coherence, it's incredible how I can shift the room in terms of resonance and potency and help people lean into their resistance to actually learn something, a new perspective on an old topic that makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable, only because it's new, only because it's different. And I would invite you to try this for yourself, because the science can back it. And until we actually experience the potency of this super skill that you have access to, because it's your birthright, it becomes a game changer. So that leads me to our experiential portion of this episode. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just about understanding everything that we talk about in Lead Through Change cognitively. It's about feeling it in our systems, because our systems, our energy, our bodies, our nervous systems are the most powerful, potent aspect of our leadership and of our being, right? Our beingness. We have to embody the skills. So let's move in to that space. What we're going to do is, in order to tap into coherence, there's a few steps, and we're going to take these steps together experientially. So I invite you to get into a calm space, right? If you can, turn off your distractions. Please don't be driving. Please don't be doing anything unsafe. Turn off your distractions and just gift yourself the next few minutes. It won't be too long. And I promise if you do this, that you're going to, no matter what, you're just going to feel more calm and peaceful and vibrant at the end of it for the rest of your day, leaning into the rest of your day. So first off, we need to do what we did last week. We need to get out of our analytical, structured minds, where fear exists, where survival mode exists, and into our bodies. So I'm going to guide us through that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide us into our heart space, and I'm going to invite you to just breathe in and out from this heart space. Now that you know what's happening here, right? That you are creating this electromagnetic field that does so much wonderful, powerful, potent things from a leadership standpoint. And then I'm going to invite you, you don't have to think about any of this, I'm just giving you a heads up, to think about a time in your life, a memory, where you felt joy or excitement or elatedness or gratitude. And I'm going to invite you to feel into that as we breathe and focus on the heart. And I just want you to feel the difference between now, when we go into this, and when we come out of it. Heart Math Institute, I'll say this quickly. Heart Math Institute's research shows that when people practice getting into coherence on a regular basis, they do a lot of work with law enforcement. When they do this work with law enforcement, they have police officers who practice getting into coherence regularly, for example, with the technology that I mentioned. If there is a house call, right, there's a domestic disturbance of some sort, the police officers who know how to do this skill, when they walk into that house, no matter what's happening in that house, energetically, emotionally, chaotically, etc., when they walk out and they go back to the next call, or they go back to their job, right, go back to continuing their day of their job, their on-duty calls, those who practice coherence, it takes their system up to a maximum of 15 minutes to go back to regulated state, the way that they were before they walked into that house. Those who don't practice, it takes them a minimum of 45 minutes. So just in the interest of your own sake, I invite you to do this experience with me. the breath work that we're going to do is the halo active breath. So it's going to be in through the nose and out through the mouth. That's it. And I may invite you from time to time to do a top hold, which will mean emptying all your breath out and then filling in your belly, your chest, and bringing that breath straight to the top of your head and squeezing your body as tight as you can and bringing all of that pressure to the top of your head and holding it for a few seconds and then releasing it. And then we'll go back to the halo active, in through the nose, out through the mouth. All right, I am going to cue the music. The invitation is to sit, lie down, whatever you can do. I invite you to close your eyes or even just soften your gaze. And to begin by feeling the seat below you. What does it feel like against your skin, against your body? Knowing too that that seat, it's got you. It's not going to drop you. So that means that you are free to sink into it, to let yourself be held in this moment. Knowing you are safe, knowing you are supported, and knowing that this moment, you are allowed to grant this moment just for yourself. Everything else can wait, and it'll still be there at the top of the hour when we finish this program. Inviting you to start breathing that halo active breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. As you breathe, allowing yourself to sink more deeply into your body. Feeling the breath come in through your nose, out through your mouth. Feeling the seat below you, sinking. More and more deeply into your body. Letting it pull you deeper. You're ready, let's bring some awareness to your heart space. As you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, can you focus on breathing in that breath in through your heart space. Might feel supportive to bring a hand to your heart so you can really focus that energy, focus that breath coming in and out from that space. As you deepen your breath, deepening your breath, feeling it more potently. If you begin to feel a little lightheaded, you can always calm your breath for a moment, but that's completely natural. That's all of the oxygen that's going through your veins, that's going through your body. That's all of the energy that you are cultivating. On your next breath out, I'm going to invite you to let all of that air out. And we're going to do that first top hold. So bringing inhale in, straight to the top of your head, holding that breath right at the top of your head and squeezing your arms, your glutes, your core, squeezing it, squeezing that energy, squeezing that breath right to the top of your head. Feeling the aliveness surge through your veins. And when you're ready, releasing the breath, hand to the heart, returning to the heart space. Feeling how much more you can intensify that energy coming in and out of your heart. And as you feel that energy, that potency coming in and out of your heart, my next invitation for you is to conjure a memory. One that makes you feel excited, makes you feel joyous, makes you feel the energy of love. Maybe it's something with your children or your loved ones. Maybe it's something that you're working towards, a project that you're working towards that you're so excited to bring to life. As you breathe in and out through that heart space, just play. This is experiential. Just play with what does it feel like to breathe from this space and to feel that emotion. As you continue to take your breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. How deeply can you feel that joy, that excitement, that love? Invitation to amplify it a little bit more. See what it feels like as it runs through your body, as your heart expands, as the energy, the excitement, the joy, the love amplifies. Your next exhale, letting all the breath out, taking a deep breath in, one last sip of air at the top, Bringing all of that energy, all of that breath straight to the top of your head, straight to your crown chakra, clenching your arms, clenching your core, clenching your legs, your glutes, holding that energy at the top. And when you're ready, releasing the breath, hand to the heart, awareness back to the heart, breathing in and out from this space. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And letting the feelings, the energy that's surging through your body right now, the emotion that might be resonating through you, just letting it land, allowing yourself with calmed breath, inhales through the nose, exhales through the mouth, through that heart space, allowing yourself to feel all of what you just cultivated, all of what you just conjured, all of the coherence that is going to carry you through the rest of today, amplifying your resonance, amplifying the safety that people feel with you, amplifying your ability to communicate in a way that truly resonates and that leads your vision, whatever that might be. Letting that land. As we take our last few breaths in and out through the heart, with gratitude for having been granted these few moments just for yourself, for this potency, for this energy, for this vibrance, this resonance that you have access to anytime you want it. It is always here for you. Just requires getting into the body, getting into the heart, elevating your emotional state, and then leading from this place. And when you're ready, I invite you to return to the here and now. How does it feel? I'd really love to hear. Whether you share now, whether you DM me later, or send me an email, write on the comments of this thread as it goes down in history, searchable history. So we have covered a lot in this short amount of time, and I want to bring it back to the heart of what matters. Why we were here today. So coherence isn't just a concept. Coherence is a state of being and is one of the most potent and powerful skills of someone who needs to lead through change for all of the reasons that we explored here today. When you're in coherence, your system, your nervous system, your energy, your heart rhythm, your brain function is completely aligned. Head, heart, emotion, nervous system. And when you lead from this grounded, aligned, centered, high vibrational, calming state, people feel it. They feel it before you open your mouth to speak. They feel it by your sheer presence, and they even feel it through a screen. And here's the truth that I want you to remember. when you're leading through change, when you're leading through crisis, when you're leading through any type of, let's just say any type of change, you don't need to fix everything here and now. You can't fix everything here and now because you usually don't have all of the answers. You also don't need to pretend to have all of the answers. What you need to do in order to resonate and lead from this potent, very powerful skill set is to be anchored in your knowings, in your truth, and what you do know, in your vision of where you're taking people, and in coherence with all of these things. And then by your sheer presence, you become the calm in the storm. You become the leader that people lean into because you feel safe to their system, which gives their mind clarity, and then they're open, they're more trusting to hear more of what you're now going to speak to lead them through the change. This is how you become the kind of leader others instinctively trust to guide them through change, crisis, uncertainty. I hope that this was interesting to you. I hope that this resonated, and I hope that you enjoyed the experiential piece of it. You have access to it now. You have access to going back to that recording anytime you may need it when you want to practice getting into coherence. Spending several minutes a day practicing this skill, practicing and stretching this muscle just like you'd go to the gym several times a week, will have a potent, visible, and felt difference on the capabilities, the capacities, and the potency of your leadership. If this conversation stirred something in you, you are not alone. The leaders, there are so many of us out there who are craving this knowledge because we know in our systems, we know deep within us that there is a better, more potent way to lead that is different from what we've been taught. The leaders, for example, who work within Crisis Ready, the certification that we offer, are asking the same questions and are seeking the same answers that you might be asking and seeking. And they're learning to lead not from reaction, but from resonance. Not from control, but from coherence. This work isn't just about crisis management or change management. It's about stepping into the highest potential of your leadership capabilities at a time when people's nervous systems are dysregulated. When there's a stat that says, very good stat, but I still think that the stat is low, that most people live in stress and in survival mode 70% of the time, which means that their systems are craving leaders who can help them feel safe, help them feel more calm, help them feel more resonant, and give them what they need so that they can actually lead through the uncertainty and lead through the change that we're all craving. So if your system in any way is going, this makes sense, this feels good to me, this is a yes to me, trust that. Trust that. Get curious about it. Come and join me every single Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern live for this type of experience, or weekly on the podcast. And if you're curious about the certification, if you're curious about truly becoming an embodied, what we call visionary crisis leader at the Institute, where this is not just a skill that you tap into every once in a while, but a way that you lead your life on a regular basis, then either go to crisisreadyinstitute.com or DM me or message me or reach out to me, email me, and I'd be so happy to share more with you, because my mission in this world is to create a world filled with leaders who can do this so that we can have less pain and suffering in moments of uncertainty, in moments of change, in moments of chaos and crisis, and we can live more of the life that I believe that we all are craving, which is higher frequency emotion, more love, more gratitude, more joy, less stress, less fear, less survival. All right, and with that, I am wishing you a beautiful rest of your day. Stay grounded, stay clear, stay connected, stay in coherence. I'll see you next week.